Thanks for your presence at this presentation. So you are here to about Cassandra experience. So first of all, I'm Vincent from Datastax company. Datastax is the company behind Apache Cassandra project, and we deliver an enterprise edition of Cassandra, which is mainly about hardening the open source, making it easier to use for traditional enterprise through provisioning, through enterprise security monitoring. We also embed an integrated search engine into the database. We integrated analytics through Spark. We integrated a graph engine into it. So really, Datastax Enterprise is a technology stack, a full technology stack, which is made for building modern application. So that was my just few seconds of presentation, and I encourage you to come to our booth at the Datastax booth. Thanks. No, it's for you guys.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, Vincent. Let me see where I'm gonna stand. Yes. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our presentation. It's still called Breaking Bad, Building a Cassandra Empire. We were actually inspired by the series of Breaking Bad when we were thinking of a presentation on this expo. I don't know if you know it, but there's quite some disruption in that series. And one of the things was in the beginning, and then there was a big choice. They had to make a big choice. Something happened, and they needed to go to a disruptive path in order to change the life. And that sort of feels also how we went through with ING. Because as ING, we had a certain amount of time, we're at a crossroad, and we really had to choose. Are we going the same direction as we were going already before, or are we going on a more disruptive path? And that's also with the focus of this whole presentation. It's some of the engineering parts coming back, but it's also focusing a lot on the mindset, the culture, and how do you build a platform, or how do you build an empire within an enterprise like ING? Because we also think that is very important. Well, before we continue, first a very short introduction of ING and us.
About ING. It is one of the largest banks in the Netherlands. But what you might not know is we do have a strong European base. And I think one thing that's actually really changed in the last few years is our CEO actually starts communicating. We are an engineering company with a banking license. So we are changing the way we see IT and the way we handle IT and the way we prioritize what we're doing. We need to work together. And that's why we're adopting a Spotify model, Biz DevOps. We're doing it all just so we can enable the new markets that are coming. Because, to be honest, we have a lot of competition, not just from other banks, but also from Silicon Valley and all those other big IT companies. And one of the challenges we have by being a full-service bank is we have a lot of squads. So we have at least 150 squads in the Netherlands. So that can also bring a lot of challenges on how do you actually work together and how do you sort of deliver quality products. And a little bit about us. We met a few years ago, and actually we sort of started saying we became an unexpected duo. If you see us in the office, you'll probably see us fighting, but actually we're challenging each other. And I think the thing that we do really well is we are complementary to each other's skills. So we want to learn from each other, and we also allow each other to help each other.
Yes, definitely. And it's really important if we start looking at the picture what we were going against. Because once we have the same goal, and it's good that we are complementary, because Gary is more focusing on the architecture, I'm more focusing also on the HR and on the mindset in the company, because I'm the chapter lead. It is a good combination to have when you start on an enterprise or start on an sort of a journey on building an empire within ING. The other one, common enemies beware. Well, that's just we're also called the married couple quite often, so that's interesting. But it is also good to have some sort of a partnering up if you want to start achieving something. If you go back to the story, it's actually we were at the moment of time we were caught at a bad time. And what does it mean? We were actually faced with a lot of issues with availability. We were seeing that the world around us was changing and the customer expectations were becoming higher, higher, and higher, and higher. A lot of more data, a lot of more TPS is going on to our systems. So that pretty much meant that we needed to change something. And we thought, okay, maybe we have to scale. We have to scale up. We have to scale out. But at a certain amount of time, there is a limit to vertical scaling. So we also saw that our architecture that we had within ING was very hard to scale, also our application landscape. So that is all where we started to see, okay, we need to do some disruptive changes within our company to make this work. And well, it sort of feels what the saying here, like if you see everything coming, you're not living. So we definitely lived the last couple of years at ING.
Absolutely. And when you get to a point and you realize that things are not going the way you want them to, in our case it was unavailability. A few years ago we had a lot of outages in the bank, particularly in Ideal. That was the thing that really changed it. You get yourself to a crossroad and you have to decide which way you want to go. Now, you can make a good thing at these crossroads. You can actually allow yourself to go crazy. Try something you haven't tried before, because it almost feels like you have nothing to lose. Now, you do have something to lose. I mean, it can always be worse than what it was, but that freedom changes the way you actually look at things. And also, when you do something new and you find new value, you can also reapply those principles into the existing stuff. So it's about continuous learning and not looking at a bad situation and saying, we're just going to carry on and then suffer. So in order to start this, we realized quite early that we needed a simple goal. We needed to be very clear in what we are going to try and do. Because if you look at any large organization, it's complex. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of pieces that you can fix. There's always something. We decided that we only wanted to focus on the data layer. Just that small piece in the architecture, not the application layer, not the front end, not the web page, but the data layer. We wanted to make that available. We were used to the master-slave, not working on distributed databases, so we wanted to start tolerating failure instead of making it more unable to fail. So that's why Cassandra came in. Then we realized we were lucky. We were on a project, we had time to play with this, but we also made a lot of mistakes. So we need to educate people in the organization to actually adopt this. And that's actually why we became Cassandra trainers within the organization. We made a pool of trainers, and that helped get the message out. But the flip side also happened. We were getting educated on what people needed and what their challenges were. But around us is also the challenges. Everyone has their own reasons why you shouldn't do something and why you should. And you need to start educating yourself from their perspective so that you can actually take it on. And then we said, let's just build the data empire.
Yes, but building an empire also requires you to have some knowledge on building an empire. And, well, we didn't. So we were pretty much knobs on building an empire. And surely we are quite confident in our technical skills and maybe some of the political skills that we had within the company. We had a network, we did new people, but we were not knowing what we were up against. So senior management support and also our own management support was very important here. Architecture already was pretty much on board with Gary, and HR was also pretty much carried. But if we didn't have that clue of management support all over and the freedom to actually achieve something, we wouldn't have been where we were today. But we still wanted to build that empire. We still wanted to get saying, okay, all those old databases, they are crap, and we're going for a NoSQL solution, Cassandra, and we go distributed, and this is the solution for everybody. But in order to do that, you also need to learn about Cassandra itself. So we had some use cases that we wanted to start off with, and they were very specific. One very easy one, which was pretty much a RESTful API, which we were offering as a web page. And the other one was the real-time payments engine. And that's a way more complex one. It is actually holding all the data and all the transactional data between the account management systems within the Netherlands. So all of the transactions which are going from one system to the other system, the intermediate state that was stored in Cassandra. If you hear that, then you already hear, okay, that sounds a lot of like transactions. And, well, that's great if you have a traditional database, but if you have a Cassandra database, that kind of hurts, pretty much. So we learned a lot, and we talked about this in other talks as well. And it is interesting, if you really take such a extreme use case, then you have to go into the details and to the nitty-gritty details of a system like Cassandra. And that's where we really learned how to use it, maybe abuse it even, in some ways. But at least you get into the details and then you can explain why you're making certain decisions. But you can also sort of fight against the status quo, that everything has to be a transaction. That is also a mindset that had to change in a lot of engineers' head, because not everything has to be a transaction transaction in order to have some confidence that you can store data in a confident way or be consistent all over the place. And the other one, we liked that one. This was our manager actually said to us, "You guys, you're allowed to bring down the bank." We didn't, so that's good. Because I'm wondering what was happening when we would have done it. But it's just the fact that he gives you the respect, or at least the trust, that he think, okay, you guys can do whatever you want. I will not stop you of doing this. So that's really important for us to actually go on to this journey. If you look at this one, I like what is stated here. It says, I wanted the storms, I wanted the calms, I wanted to feel loneliness. Actually, it pretty much says, I want to experience. I need to experience all different kinds of things in order to actually gain the knowledge and gain the experience that I need to build something on within a company, and also educate other people what to do. And by doing this and going into the open waters, let's say it like that, you also find new allies. And those new allies are very important. For us, we were a company that has a lot of silos, so it was quite hard to get things done. But by imposing you in an open way, they actually are also enabling you to actually get something done together with all of us. More like a community way of thinking. And another thing that was very important here is, here we actually made a shift from building an empire to building a platform. That's really important, because that really enabled us to exceed expectations. And that's where we also offered something that's called Keyspace as a service. Well, if you know with Cassandra, you know that Keyspace is a schema of a database. And that's also where we also saw, okay, we need to be able to govern this service. And that's where we build up a tool called Hubble.
Yeah. Now, we actually went back quite simple. We took quite a lot of steps back. When you actually look at making a data model today, what do? We document it. And we have Confluence, you would put it in Confluence, you document your data model, everyone's happy, and then that would be manual work. And 2 days later, you'll change the model, you won't update the document. I mean, that's what we developers do. We do the first version on documentation, we make the model, and then there are other things. And then the question starts becoming, what's the truth? Which one is correct? Which one should it be? And this is a big problem with manual type work. So we said, you know, we're offering a service, so why don't we change it around a little bit? Why don't we say to developers, stop spending time documenting the model, but rather spend time getting the model correct, add your comments in the table itself under DDL, data definition language, and then we will generate the documentation. So we built Hubble, which is a small Scala project that is using Confluence. By the way, I did not mention Confluence also has notifications, so when the page changes, you can see what the change is via an email, which is very handy for developers to work together. So we were actually tapping into this, so we then started generating all the data models on the cluster. In the Datastax Java drivers, you have a metadata, and that exposes a schema, and you do not need to have access to any data. So then with that information, you can generate your Confluence page. Now, why is this important? It actually means that we exposed all the data models to all the other teams. So now, developers could actually look at other teams' data model and see if they can find something that resembles their problem, and how did they solve that. So just something as simple as exposing the data models on Confluence and making it accessible to everyone already started changing working together. And it's such, you know, these little things. And then we started going, this is great. We now have the models. What if we start enriching it? So the cluster pushes out a lot of metrics. There's a feature for the metrics reporter. We do warn you, if you enable all the metrics, then you might blow up the Graphite server. So be sure you know what you're doing and the Graphite server can handle it, because I believe it's about 2,000 metric points per table per node. So if you have 100 nodes, 100 tables, the number can go quite large. But the thing is, we started getting all this data, and now we can attach it to the data model, and then we can start giving a bit of insights. Which tables are performing well, which ones are not. Then we can actually start realizing which ones are the ones that we want to start focusing on, which ones are getting it right. But to be honest, the cluster can tolerate failure. So if the cluster says it's a high 99 percentile, maybe the applications don't have a high 99 percentile. So the cluster is not the view you care about. You care about the view of the application. So you need to link it to the application. So we took it one step further, and we added a small wrapper around the Datastax Java drivers, mainly to add naming conventions for the metrics. Because what we said is if you use this driver, we called it Supernova driver, if you use this driver, we will push the metrics in a location we can find it, and then we can give insights from your experience. And then we started realizing we've kind of made a whole loop. What if we automate getting the data model into the cluster? Now we have a sort of feedback loop. So if you make a model change, it will get generated on Confluence, and the developer will get that notification that the model has changed. Why is this important? It actually allowed us to block the entire cluster. So now, actually almost everyone does not have access to the cluster. Because when a developer says, I need access to the cluster, they actually don't per se need access. They need the insights so they can do their job. And this is the data that we've been working on to make developers' lives easier.
Yes, and even without knowing so, we were already focusing on a other movement which is called shift left. Not knowing if you are familiar with it, but it actually helped us a lot. It's not just shift left, it's also immutable patterns. And in immutable I also mean, okay, we restrict access on certain servers or certain applications so that you cannot access it anymore. So in order to get the data out, you already have to think about it on another side of your process. So the shift left, where you can see it in this picture, the normal quality cycle is on the right side. That is more in the end state, so in application or in production. Where we are saying, okay, if you shift that information left, the quality model moves to the engineer. Actually, pretty much what moves is also you enable the engineers, and make them more autonomous. You can actually give them the freedom to create something. And that really helped us a lot. And just the example of Hubble, restricting access from the application, from the acceptance and production servers, and only giving them the information which they really need, because that is what they wanted from us. That really helps engineers also to focus on other things than the tedious jobs or the other jobs, and just focus on how can I actually build the perfect product and how can I really own this product that I need. And that was a really interesting thing that we found out when we saw, okay, this shift left, that is really going to work for us. And now we're taking it to more drastic measures, but this is already where we saw it starting off. And another thing in the Hubble is called, well, we don't really necessarily like maturity levels, but we do like feedback cycles. And what we did here is we did sort of define maturity levels and said, okay, if you follow these principles or these rules, you should be having a good experience with our key space as a service offering that we offer within ING. But what we did as well is, okay, we give them the insights of what's really happening there. So we can give them an insight, okay, if you do this, then you can improve. And that is feedback again on the Confluence pages. And that is the information that we're gathering from all the metric points that we're gathering, and all the information on the schemas and whatnot that is coming out of the clusters to our Hubble instance that we have. This is, funny enough, an easy way to get proper feedback, not only for the team, but also for the teams around you. Because we learn as well. We see that there are some common mistakes made by everybody when they start using Cassandra. So you can already proactively warn people from the website and say, okay, first look through these things. If you have fixed all of those, then most likely you already have a way better experience than you had before. If not, of course, we're here to help you guys. But this already removes the pressure from your team as well when you start doing these kind of things. So what happened is people were seeing that Cassandra is a very good solution for having a high available data storage. And not only the engineers saw that, but also the managers saw that. So there was a lot of pressure of getting everybody onto Cassandra, and just don't look at the fact that there are other databases out there. Let's just move everything to Cassandra. So there was a very high pressure on us to actually, well, do that. Because that is a lot of teams, as we said, 150 plus teams with a lot of use cases per squad. So we were actually distracted from our quality. And we were only focusing on our own issues, on how can we make this stable, how can we let these clusters run still. And instead of that, we were missing the point of building up a platform. We were diverging away from building a platform. We were actually building our own empire again and focusing on, well, at least make it work and make it as big as possible, instead of just saying, okay, how can we actually improve it so that we can gain from it as well. And that other part of that is there just too much data. Gary already mentioned it, but if you really look at it, there's so much metrics and information going from all those metric points that it's so hard to correlate. And we found out that our team wasn't diverse enough. Yes, we did DevOps. Yes, we did biz DevOps. But we didn't do, well, let's say, data science DevOps, or whatever you want to call it. Because we were missing that guy that would actually be there and see and say, okay, how can we correlate these metrics? How can we see if a spike is here, it correlates to another spike there. So if this is happening here, there will be something happening later on there as well. So we could be more proactive. We could learn from all those metrics and see how we can circumvent issues. Because people were sharing clusters. So one key space could really hurt the other key space if they were doing something that we didn't want them to do. So we really learned that DevOps is not enough. Let's say it like that. You also need data science in your team to make it better. And the other one is connect with other initiatives. Of course, it's an open door, but really needed to do that. There are other countries. ING is a rather large company, and it has a lot of countries that are offering services to. And they were also doing these initiatives. They were also doing something with Cassandra or other NoSQL databases. So really build up a community there. And that's where also we build our own sort of open source community within ING. And now like this, these conferences, giving back the knowledge that we at least gain, that really feels good, but you also get all this knowledge back. So that's something we learned as well. Embrace this open source community within the company, but also outside of the company.
And maybe to add, we actually open sourced the Hubble project. So it's kind of our first attempt to do an open source project. And even that was a challenge because you then start learning how hard the open source mentality really is. It's still a challenge for us. We are still learning what it means to be an open source project. So the link's not on the slide, sorry about that, but it is on GitLab. But you know, as Chris mentioned, we're starting to think in platforms. And one of the, I think hands down the best thing that we didn't realize or didn't anticipate was when you start focusing on your platform and start focusing on helping others, maybe they're going to do something with your platform that you didn't imagine. So what we noticed was we made a distributed database available in our company. We allowed others to not worry about getting that database available. They had to worry about their use case. So by us focusing on the challenges of getting the distributed database there, people were actually now becoming enabled. So before you would have a single instance database and then you would have your limitations of performance and latency and all that. But then you can't link, say, all your tracing information, or you can't link your actual insights or other use cases. So what we realized was our dedication to one problem and removing that problem from someone else or from other teams, it allowed them to have a dedication to their problem. And we didn't dictate how you could use our platform. We just said, here's a platform, let's see what happens. And I think this is a great thing about platform thinking, because then you start building a sort of an engagement with other teams, and then they can actually focus on their functionality. So the real recap that we can come up with is, for platforms and building platforms, you want to aim for it to be clear and easy. I can guarantee you when you use something like Cassandra or a distributed database at the beginning, it's hard. You're going to run into that wall, you're going to get hurt, you're going to make mistakes. We all do that because we've been thinking SQL for many years. Now you need to change that paradigm shift to NoSQL. And I think it's getting better today because we're doing it a lot. It's becoming more norm. You need to start focusing on anytime, anywhere, because before we always think on SLA, there must be 99. It's too much information. Just think about it being always on, always available anywhere, and just go the extra mile, because that will challenge you. You need to empower. So we felt really empowered when we were told we could bring down the bank. Of course, it didn't become the goal. That's a risk, I guess. But we felt it was a safe place to actually experiment. And then when you actually do this, you're all basically going to keep getting better every day. And the reason why we love working at ING is because this is actually our purpose and strategy for the company. And when you think about it, you can apply it to your own platform internally as well. So when we say we're building a Cassandra empire, actually we stand corrected. We're building a platform. Thank you. Yeah.